They say time reveals everything. Who truly loves you, and who only pretends when you have something to offer. And I learned that truth the hardest way possible. In my own house. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next life story, with love and respect. My name is Rosa, and for most of my life, people only saw me as the poor mother-in-law. No fancy clothes, no car, no jewels. Just a widow who raised her son with her bare hands and quiet faith. When my son Adrian brought home his bride Camila, I was happy, truly happy. She was beautiful, confident, from a wealthy family. Her perfume smelled like something I could never afford, and her words, well, they always came wrapped in silk, polite, sweet, but cold. First, I tried. I cooked for her, sewed her favorite dress when it tore, even gave up my own bedroom so they could have the biggest room in the house. But slowly, the smiles faded, and the walls began to talk. Your mother is so simple, I heard her whisper one night to my son. She uses that cheap soap. The smell lingers everywhere. Maybe she should stay in the back room, you know, for privacy. Privacy. That's what she called it. But what she really wanted was distance. From me, from my presence, from the woman who had built the very walls she now decorated with gold frames. And my son didn't say anything. He just lowered his eyes. That silence hurt more than any insult ever could. From that day on, I became invisible in my own home. Camila hired maids who ignored me, replaced my simple curtains with velvet ones, and threw away the old teacups I'd kept since my husband's days. When I tried to protest, she'd smile and say, "Oh, Rosa, don't worry. We're just upgrading. You deserve better." But what she really meant was, "You don't belong here anymore." I swallowed my pride and stayed quiet. Because sometimes, silence is the only weapon of the wise. Months passed. Camila's parents often visited, bringing expensive gifts and gossip. They looked at me like I was a servant. No hello, no thank you, just glances that said, "You're lucky to be under the same roof." But I had something they didn't know. A secret. Before my husband died, he had invested in a small piece of land far from the city. Barren, dry, useless at the time. Everyone said it was a foolish decision. But I trusted him. 4 years, that land sat untouched. Until one day, a letter came from a company, a construction group, wanting to buy it for millions. I said nothing. Not even to Adrian. Because love doesn't need to test loyalty. Life does it for you. Then came my 65th birthday. Camila hosted a party, all glitter and glamour. She wore a diamond necklace and smiled for photos. When people complimented the house, she laughed and said, "Oh, it's all thanks to Adrian and me. We've worked so hard to build this place." My heart ached. Because I remembered the nights I went hungry so my son could study, the extra shifts I took to pay for his college, the roof I patched myself during the rainy seasons. And now, in the same house, I stood like a shadow at my own celebration. When it was time to cut the cake, Camila handed me a knife with a smirk. "Make a wish, Rosa," she said. "I wish," I whispered softly, "that truth always finds its way home." She laughed, not knowing what I meant. A month later, Adrian and Camila announced they were moving to a new house. Bigger, fancier. "Mom," my son said, avoiding my eyes. "You'll be comfortable here. We'll visit." I nodded. I didn't cry. Because some goodbyes are not said with words. They're written in silence, though I stayed behind. Alone. 2 weeks after they left, the letter arrived again. The construction company had doubled their offer for the land. I sold it. Quietly. And overnight, the poor mother-in-law became a millionaire. But I didn't buy a mansion. I bought something better. Peace. A year passed. Camila's dream life started to crumble. Her father's business fell apart. Her husband lost his job. They sold their luxury car and the house followed soon after. And one rainy evening when thunder shook the sky, my doorbell rang. He was Adrian, drenched, tired, holding a suitcase. Behind him, Camila stood, her makeup ruined by tears. "Mom," he said, voice breaking. "We have nowhere else to go." I looked at them quietly. For a moment, I saw the boy I raised, and the woman who once called me too simple. I could have shut the door. I could have said, "Now you know how it feels." But I didn't. Instead, I opened the door and said softly, "Come in. You look cold." Camila stared at me in disbelief. "After everything I said, you're still taking us in?" I smiled faintly. A mother's home doesn't close, even when hearts do. Days passed. Camila tried to help around the house, awkwardly at first. She burned the rice, broke a plate, and apologized more times than I could count. But one afternoon, I came home to find her sitting quietly in my garden, the one I'd tended for years. She was holding a small framed photo, one I hadn't seen in decades. It was of me and my husband, standing in front of that barren land. She looked up and said softly, "I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" I asked. "That you and your husband built everything from nothing. That you raised Adrian alone. That this house, it's not ours. It's yours." Tears welled in her eyes. I was cruel. Proud. I thought money made us better. I was wrong. I sat beside her, the wind carrying the scent of jasmine through the air. "Camila," I said gently, "we all forget what truly matters when life shines too bright. But the light doesn't last forever. Kindness does." A few weeks later, I invited them both to dinner. When the meal ended, I took out 2 envelopes. The first, I handed to Adrian. Inside were the house papers, signed under his name. "Mom, no," he said, eyes wide. "This is yours." "No," I smiled. "This house was built with love. Love doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to the family." Then I handed the second envelope to Camila. Inside was a document, a business registration form. "I'm starting a foundation," I said, "for widows, single mothers, women who've been forgotten. I want you to help me run it." She covered her mouth in shock. "You trust me?" I looked at her. Really looked. She was no longer the proud woman who looked down on me. She was human, fragile, humbled, and changed. "I do," I said softly. "Because forgiveness is also a kind of power." Months later, our foundation opened. The day of the inauguration, cameras flashed, people applauded. Camila stood beside me, her eyes glistening with gratitude. Adrian held my hand as he whispered, "I never realized how strong you were, Mom." I smiled. Strength isn't loud, son. It's in the quiet moments, when you choose compassion over revenge. That evening, as the crowd cheered, I looked up at the sky and whispered, "We did it, my love." To my late husband, "We turned pain into purpose." They once called me the poor mother-in-law. Now, they call me the woman who built hope. But I don't care for titles. Because wealth fades, beauty fades, but dignity? That stays forever. So if you're listening to my story tonight, remember this. Don't ever look down on someone just because their life looks simple. Sometimes, the people you dismiss quietly are the ones who hold the power to change your world. And as for Camila, she never mocked again. She became my daughter in every sense, helping women like me find their voices, their peace, their worth. That's what love does when pride falls away. It rebuilds. It forgives. It heals. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next life story, with love and respect.